Okay, yeah, I'm actually trying to find. Okay, there it is. I'm looking for the timestamp. Yeah, I'm just getting a quick look at the lighting and setting. I'm going to think about what I want to talk about, referring to like a EltonJohn song, "Lucy in the Sky," and the Marmalade Sky. I think it was 1972. I don't know if my memory serves me correctly, but I mean it was like the orangest sky. I mean in my entire life, it may have been 1972, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'm just kind of want to get a look here at the sound and recording real quick and the lighting. I think that'll probably be enough. I might, maybe plug one more effects laser in. I'm not sure yet. I probably will when I get ready to really talk about it. I just wanting to talk about that and, um, thing about Bryan Adams and a girl with kaleidoscope eyes in that music video with Bryan Adams. Um, do I have to say the words? And it's kind of like he's wearing those extended like lenses. Um, and ultimately, it seemed to be like a combination of like all the information and the way I'm thinking. It's almost like it's grouped. It's like available information, really at a worldwide level of what's going on like around the entire world, and even like the memory um, about all that information. Seemingly, um, that seemingly being the thing about that one particular video of Brian Adams in Turkey, Istanbul. But it's like involving the Sea of Galilee. Yet something in my mind of like Club Med. Yet something about East Beach. It almost looks like certain scenes at East Beach here in Galveston at the Sea of Galilee. Um, and something about like a Ford Pinto window, a rear window. He's wearing those lenses, and it's kind of like I'm actually thinking about a Sony NX100 digital camcorder. Because all that information seemed to be like even the lens authority, the availability thing about that one particular camera. I mean, the connectivity. I mean, can go via satellite. I mean, worldwide. I mean, it's just a simple connector. Um, but it is the connectivity that will, go straight into a live stream or live as directly to like a local news station or national or world news. I mean, it has all that connectivity, but anyway, and plus it has like a 48 uh, zoom lens powered magnification. 24 of it is like optical, and 24 is like the digital um, power magnification of the zoom lens combines like 48. Um, it has a real good range and zoom and clarity with all the options and capabilities of the connectivity is, really what I was looking at for a price range of like right around $1,500. I mean, it is very much what seemed to be, based upon availability. I mean, it still seemed like really the one that would be um, the one to really have and get and use that way. Um, but yeah, it's kind of like that Brian Adams video is like he's wearing what looks like, I'm not sure if they're like binocular type of like lenses of night vision or an EltonJohn song, Lucy in the Sky, the Kaleidoscope eyes. Yet, I mean, all this information that I'm referring to seem to be going with like Austin Powers, Bluebonnet Imperial Eagle, and once again, it's kind of like more and more. I'm kind of like finding myself talking about him like more and more. But um, something about the Austin Powers maybe in the wheelbarrow of like what has the appearance of like identical perfection except with the green eyes in the wheelbarrow. And, and I heard all that talk, as a child. Chicken Little, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. To me, it seemed to be, I mean, the one thing about the similarities of identical perfection in the movie, an Austin Powers movie, of what appears to be, I've shown her like quite a bit more lately than really Um, it's not that anticipated to like really at all, but um, I was thinking about some significance that had further like went into direction. So but I was thinking about that movie with Austin Powers, and it's like the green and blue, the color of the sea, like a Samuel Hager song of like returning home. Yet the American Express bluebird card with the bird with like a green and blue wing. That's the principle of the Israeli bird being a blue and purple bird, one bird being blue and purple, um, called the wubba. But anyway, yeah, so like all that information. But anyway, it's kind of like William Pullman, the author of Principles of Digital Audio, seemed to be the thing about that phrase about Chicken Little, the sky is falling. And to me, it's almost like now. I mean, um, I've been really thinking about like quite a bit about the analytical and symbolic and the Boolean chart. Yet Stargate program, um, going through the circuit and all that information. I mean, really linguistically and alphanumerically, symbolically, including sigma alpha delta kappa phi, seem to be the thing about the color code of attenuation of special effects and integration. I don't know if I'd really call it integration, but of like automation involving digital signal processing speed. Um, I'm not thinking that it's limited to, um, depending upon what practical application. Um, yes, like anyway, so like that's the alphanumerics of like 140 parallel with attenuation, and with the UA, the AU being the two letters like not in the word attenuation. It's like attention, like the absolute salute thing about the attention and attenuation, and the UA and the AU thing about it. Um, yeah, so like I was thinking about that because it's so color coded and it seemed to be like even the banner in the Eagles big of a pluribus, UNUM. It's like Los Angeles being the UN 35, Austin Powers and like Highway 35 here in Pearland. The UN being like Los Angeles and the UM like University of Miami. I mean, in I-10, I mean like all the way from like California to Florida, color coded about that degree of like special effects in audio production, sequencing characterization, sets of six, and ultimately gets to once again 6 band alphanumerics of 52 and a VPN vice president network, or the idea about the configuration, what all that is, and it seemed to be like all the information involving like supplemental security income, and now including like the EBT, electronic benefits transfer, seemed to be so much kind of like um, San Antonio in a way of like the Lexus LFSA, um, Santa Ana, San Antonio, remember the Alamo, um, even Memphis about the parrot and Pearland and the colors of like a parrot, um, or think about absentee of parrot being Perot, or with the N, it seems that the N being with the one cycle of frequency per second and pronunciation. In English, it looks like a symbolic representation of one cycle per second of frequency that would maybe normally be identified like having a center line of oscillation, measuring the speed of cycle per second. But it's like that one half above and half below, like one cycle of frequency above that letter N. That it seems to be the thing about that identifies delta forces of like. I'm thinking that it's not really limited to neighborhoods, but predominantly of neighborhoods. And think about all that information. Similarly, ultimately, the idea of like information, the secrets to temple, how the Federal Reserve runs the country, about the history of the U.S. dollar below the equator in Latin America, and Latin being alphanumeric 56, and the word, the light thing about the laser and Ronald Reagan, and the light, and it seems to be the thing about the silence of like this particular coupon that I'm thinking about. I mean, somewhere in my mind, I mean, she's like not saying a word, and it's like almost like this neighborhood. It presented something that I did notice, and I wasn't sure if my memory was actually serving me correctly about, every road in this little neighborhood being like County Road 107 once again, with a numerical and only one numerical value, and in addition to um, the one, numerical value of 107 beyond that point, 107A and 107B, C, D, E, F, um, G, and I think that the one being only numerical of 107 allow for the G and the H to alternate and be the difference between a cycle per second of frequency and an alternating circuit of electricity, or the principle of like waveform in symbolic representation. In special effects of waveform, it represents characteristics that do not change, whether it's speeded up or slowed down, involving waveform. With frequency, speeding up and slowed down changes the pitch and tone based upon bandwidth and spectrum. In any case, I don't want to go off in that direction right now, but it seems to be that even the 13-band graphic equalizer about the bandwidth and spectrum ultimately gets to like the KU bands. There's two KU bands that I have only, it's not that I know by experience, but, academics and looking in that direction of like VSAT communications, that there's only two KU bands and it's in VSAT communication, but it's like everyone in their entire life has probably been led to believe that pronouncing the W is the W, but it's really a double V, a double V. And the only thing about the double V is about like VSAT communication. And the only thing about the W is that it's the KU band. Um, the KU is really the VSAT U2 thing that I think that this lead singer for like U2 is singing about is like a pro bono, and the U2, the two KU bands of VSAT communications. Ultimately, the pronunciation of W being the two V's, and the W of the pronunciation goes to the two V's of VSAT communication, and the highest possible score of an SAT test, which is really VSAT of satellites. Um, and I was thinking about that because I was reading some information about that, but um, and ultimately, the difference between the KU band and the K and the W being the kilowatt, it's like it leads to like center point energy, and the euro dollar using region zero as like 2 and 0 being 20 and 107, and the county road I'm on like right now, which is actually 3611 Money Street, but it's likewise county road 107. Previously, in the very beginning when we first moved out here, it was like a rural route 1 bus 1104, but it's 3611 Mona Street now. But anyway, yeah, so like anyway, I was like thinking about the Marmalade Sky, like EltonJohn, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and like I think it's 1972. But the thing with this is that was like a weekend, and I think I went to sleep like on a Friday. Um, I'm not real sure why I went to sleep when I did, but I was thinking that when I woke up, it's the same day. It should have only been a couple of hours. Me waking up and the sky's like, the entire sky, like the entire dome, the entire sky from all around. It's like so orange. It's like unreal. I was kind of like going like what's really going on. For real. It was the one and only time, and I'm wondering if it's like really the Elton John song about Lucy in the Sky with diamonds that often gets to like a nanoluminance, measuring the density of light of night vision. Um, Diamonds presenting, the colors of a rainbow in a prism that is measured in nano units, which is normally like night vision automatically. Um, yeah, and Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is automatically Abraham Lincoln, you know, night vision shadow government Stargate program. But that Marmalade Sky is kind of like 1972, and I went to sleep. It was kind of like maybe I think maybe around I think 4 or 5. It's like during the summer. I think it's like during the summer. I mean, it should have stayed, like light till like 8. I mean, going on like 8:30. I think it was something like maybe potentially in August. I'm trying to actually remember what month it was. I'm thinking it's 1972. But I mean, I woke up thinking that it was only a couple hours later the same day, and I'd realized that. I mean, I was like it's kind of like I was becoming almost like disoriented, and like how could I like wake up thinking that it was just like a couple hours later when that's exactly what I thought, but it'd been like from like Friday around 4 or 5 p.m. when I went to sleep. I woke up like Sunday evening, towards probably maybe 4 or 5 p.m. and the sky was like so orange, man. I was kind of like starting to think it's kind of like now it seems to be like Trump make America great again or the COVID ID 19. Yeah, it seemed to be like all the red rectangles on the U.S. map identifying restricted areas or the RA being the Ray. Something in my mind like of Ronald Reagan, the ray gun. Maybe it's the restricted area of like 1992 and the U2 thing about the U.S. dollar and Bono, the lead singer for, the band U2. And all this information I'm like looking at and thinking about pro bono being like the idea of like the freedoms. Most people's perception think that it's automatically, some idea of like free services that maybe might include attorneys. Um, in my mind, it's like, involving like non taxable income or like, supplemental security income and the difference between a prepaid tax, like a 1040 EZ form, the colors of the Air Force One, President of the United States Air Force One, having the colors of a, 1040 EZ form, and like a percentage of it being refunded would be, like a percentage of, paying tax on that amount of a 1040 EZ form. I mean, it's like a percent. Um, yeah, but a full refund of, I mean, that percent is like a full refund of the full amount. And what seemed to be a prepaid tax has similarities that would give the impression of non taxable income, yet not necessarily really anything other than the similarities, but not really supplemental security income of the benefit, but the 1040 EZ form. And the thing with this is that pro bono presents the non taxable thing that gives benefits the idea of annuity. Um, it doesn't have to really be limited to the idea of charity, um, but a direct source um, in a different way that seemed to be presenting, what I'm looking at. And, since I was going like through what was in, me going through the circuit, had ultimately got to, realizing after pretty close to a 30-year period that a real intense 1 year period had taken place, with air raids like while I was asleep and taken to different locations all over the entire world, okay? And realized that the entertainment and like State of the Union address had been involved in like with a lot of locations involving um, We International. I'm assuming since automatically like We International is like a Warner, Electra, and Atlantic that would include the Homeowners Association, General Motors Acceptance Corporation, and the IEEE of the International Electronic Engineering. And the big O thing about the organization and We International, the monetary and domestic aggregates of neighborhoods and the gross national product of what seem to be the eccentric triangle of playing horizons of like importing and exporting yet commercial venues of living quarter and high rise towers of power. But I was kind of like thinking about that song in Brian Adams' song. Don't have to say the words because I was kind of like thinking about it because it's like the band Seventh Power is singing a song about the Sea of Galilee. I mean, I have the Power and Dominion and the Enthroned CD of Seventh Power, but that Sea of Galilee is kind of like remind me. I mean, it looks like Brian Adams is um, and like Turkey, Istanbul, and he is, and it's that taxi um, about a military barrel determined the mind's eye. The thing is that um, he's standing with like a shield in what seems to be the window of that taxi. That seems to be the thing about um, the convoy thing about you know um, the thing about it a barrel But anyway, but anyway, he's got those lenses. I was kind of like thinking, what are those? And just here recently, I've noticed, some of the facial expressions and gestures that seem similar. Certain places that really I've been, um, and it's kind of like looking at, and I noticed that also with Richard Marx. Yeah, so like about certain people in videos and just simple things like that. Yeah, but and I was thinking about that because it seemed to be like he's on like a beachfront, and it almost looks like east facing Galveston, yet the Sea of Galilee. And I'll have to think about it, but he's filming the video. Do I have to say the words in like Istanbul, Turkey? But he presents that shield and those zooms. It's almost like in my mind at the same time a 1972 Ford Pinto. And the question of Ford Aerospace: have you driven a Ford lately? Or the thing about what seemed to be the Affordable Connectivity Program. I mean, it's almost like at the same time, big wheels keep on turning, primary keep on burning. But it seemed to be the big wheels seemed to be like a cargo jet of the green and yet Soviet Union presidential jets. And the big wheel turning is just like the font size. And I'm not sure how many wheels are actually on those two jets. It may be 18. I'm not sure how many tires are on it, but I mean, it's like more than, I mean, way normal. Um, but I'm thinking about it. Maybe it's almost like the big wheel keep on turning. It seemed to be like the font size of what is now like, the fat tire. Um, really almost like the Diners Club sticker that presented, the five shades of grayscale and the font size. It only seemed to be the thing about Boulder, Colorado, or maybe even the Joe Walsh song, Rocky Mountain Way is better than the way we have. It seemed to be, I mean, the Free Sky Rocky Pro step through e-bike that I have, 1,800 watt in a midnight blue. I mean, it's presenting in my mind automatically. I'm thinking of like, you know, the guy in the commercial that advertised it on site location, and he's the one that's like, I'm thinking I've met and may have actually been in a location of like employment there, but I'm trying to remember. I think there's several locations, and I'm not sure if that's really it at all. Um, but the thing with this said, he's the one saying, "Consider it shredded, Mr. President." It was like one of the locations during the Stargate program I was taken to, but it seemed to be the thing about, in the Clear Lake, Texas area of a cutlery involving, like fine dining or, banquets or buffets or, thing about, cutlery for like um, silverware and stuff like that, But the way it was pronounced, it was like a Vortec or Vortex, but the way it's spelled, and it's kind of like the Vortec engine, V8 of like a Chevrolet Silverado. Um, and Ellington being, not far away from Clear Lake, and all that information of like Ellington being like 108 in Chevrolet or operator, or, even the idea of the equator or zero tolerance of network operations. And it seemed to be, Ellington being 108 or bicentennial, yet Galveston County being Alpha America 213 and Chevrolet Silverado, or, Chevrolet Camaro IROC Z28, and the IROC Z28 being, based upon my birth year at the age of 28 being like 1992. And it seemed to be that map having all those red rectangles would identify as restricted areas, Pearland being one of them. Almost seemed to be the Kobe ID 19 of like being 72, or the category of money. In 1972 to 92 is like 20 years. The Alpha America was like 20, it's like 107 this county road that I'm on. Um, and the U2 thing about the word seclurum spelled with two U's, it may have been spelled like with U two U's, seclurum with two U's, and um, before it changed to maybe a U and an O. But I really didn't really pay attention. I mean, to the backside of the US $1, other than what I could get, like maybe a couple of tacos at like Jack in the Box, and maybe a Jiffy Burger at like Dairy Queen. Yeah, 32 cents for like a Jiffy Burger, like Dairy Queen. Okay, yeah. So like anyway, so like I mean that was like a long time ago. Okay, um, yeah. So like I was thinking about that because it seemed to be that Marmalade Sky, and the thing about women I've seen on the front lines of the beach, right, in their bikinis, yet they're like raising their arm up, and it seemed to be the thing really that seemed to be maybe something about something taking place that seemed to be the bloodline of like a band I'm listening to right now, and wondering if they're actually on a compact disc. I mean, automatically, I mean, they're the sound that seem to be like a Christian rock, cassette titled X-Men 2. And it seemed to be thinking about Lanny Griffith, the traffic master at KLOL 101.1 FM rock radio. Moby was there and like Slam Duncan and, Outlaw Dave and a lot of those disc jockeys. And, but like, I think it's Lanny Griffith, the traffic master, always used to refer to axe me, um, make me. And now it seemed to be, going through the Stargate program and realized that remembering it, it had been really the issue that ultimately is like memory minus the fact of being 35. Anyway, like Vanessa Williams sings that song, Saving the Best for Last. And right at the very beginning of the song, I mean, there's the axe in the tree stump. Yeah, Vanessa Williams is in that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Eraser. In any case, so like it seemed to be that when she's like singing that song, sometimes it snows in the month of June. It's automatically like Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner um, in the movie, like Bodyguard, but she's singing that song, I Will Always Love You. And the way she's sitting like on that chair is like, like on the toilet. Um, and the thing about sometimes it snows in the month of June and Make America Great Again, June being like 50, or Utah and Mormon, and the baptism like at the Mormon Church, June 14th, 1992, has ultimately, been my idea of like a Six Flags baptism. Um, and the alphanumerics of like June 14th being, like 64, HTTP colon, or ultimately even the thing about Compact Center, the Houston Rockets, and the compact computer, the Commodore 64. Um, yeah, so like it's like quite a bit of information, but the band that I'm listening to, it's like it sings about the bloodline stands, and this is what I'm thinking is that really for the first time I'm thinking that really it was 1972, that maybe that Marmalade Sky, um, and me like being a little disoriented, thinking that it was the same day when in fact the weekend was like almost over. I mean, it's like no one had anything to say. It was kind of like no one said a thing, which was not the concern at the time. Of course, maybe I remember that now. Maybe really it's the thing about the silence. Um, seemed to be about my blood vessels, maybe even the pituitary gland affecting a guy's growth, and where it matters in relation. Okay, and the thing with it is that I'd known something was not like quite the way it should be, and I wouldn't have like connected it to like Elton John's song "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds," but it seemed to be, a 10-star general of a rock band like Triumph, and like a spiral design of diamonds of spandex of the lead singer Rick Emmett, which seemed to be a place of that Oakland leads to like Cincinnati, Ohio, like of the general, and the stone about a place of employment. But ultimately, the stone is it's kind of like what seemed to be going through a Stargate program, and like every second place while I was asleep has been the issue of like realizing that I'd been operated on while I was asleep, and gas and fumigated, and a lot of intense air raids going through the circuit. I mean, it seemed to be like, nonstop for a year and taken from place to place. I mean, day and night. Not even knowing why I'm in court sometimes. I mean, all day and night. It seemed for like sometimes day and night for like 2 or 3 days. Not even knowing, I mean, for real, what am I even in court for? Going through the circuit. And even in the English Parliament, um, I mean, like, what am I doing in England? And even in Africa, I mean, for real, like, what am I even in any courtroom for? you know? And it's kind of like the English Parliament is all of a sudden becoming the idea of like Sting, the lead singer for like the Police, and ultimately it seemed to be the blue, the green, and the yellow of the compact disc of like in synchronicity, and it seemed to be the color code of the rainbow. Yet the yellow would normally be the idea of maybe gold. It's kind of like a yellowish gold, and there is yellow gold, and I think it's really about McDonald's golden arches and identifying delta forces with that 1 cycle per second of frequency, or that normally involves bandwidth and spectrum over the letter N in Latin language, as like normally in the name Pena. But that N seemed to go with like a OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and it become an ocean. It's like a biblical scripture of Jesus saying he knew for the foundations of the earth. Um, and even like with parrot, with the N, it's like um, parent, the absentee of a parrot being a parrot, or a parrot, excuse me. But it seemed to be ultimately getting to the colors of a parrot and like a rainbow, ultimately like night vision, nanoluminance, and like the pastel green of ambience of the 13 band group graphic equalizer, the infra green and the infrared, the pastel red of impedance, yet night vision. But it seemed to be all these colors of, even a parrot being the idea of like nymphas, and even like in my mind somehow I'm thinking about nymphas and that one solid brick will keep on turning, proud Mary keep on burning, and it's singing like a phrase of several lyrics involving Memphis, and I'm kind of like thinking about Memphis being Memphis, and the font size of the big will keep on turning, and it seemed to be the thing about the fat tire and the font size of Diners Club, ultimately getting to the grayscale of the font size of Diners Club, including the Houston Astros uniform. And it seemed to be that it used the a 5 grayscale, a 6 grayscale of the orange, and all 10 shades of grayscale on a Houston Astros uniform. And it's like the 56 is 10, being like Paper Mate, or the Alpha 94 annotated option abortion. Excuse me. But in any case, yeah, I'm going off in another direction, but it seemed to be that the band it's identified on YouTube right now as Christian rock, When I Found You. And my mother was telling me, Wade, you are brilliant. She used to tell me that, and automatically when I heard that on YouTube with this particular band, it was immediately me hearing something about my mother telling me, Wade, you're brilliant. And I'm hearing that in that one deal about uh, Christian rock, When I Found You. It's like an hour and 9 minutes of music. And automatically they have that sound, and I'm not sure, but I'm thinking possibly so that they're one of the bands that's on the X-Men 2 cassette that was like, um, my parents wanted me to meet a specific person. Her name was like Kim Upchurch, okay? And in the process of meeting her, I was going to the Assembly of God out there in the Channelview area. I think it's somewhere in between Uvalde and Federal on the east side of Houston. But, while I was going out there, like, talking to her, um, there was a guy that had the cassette, X-Men 2, and he goes, "Hey, man, I want you to listen to this." And, like, I listened to it, I thought, man, that is awesome. Hey, can I borrow it? But I had it, and I didn't have time to make a copy of it. And he had called me up and said that, like, a family member had been, you know, um, you know, um, killed in a motorcycle accident, and that he needed his cassette back. So I took it back to him. I didn't have a time to like record and make a copy of it, but I've been trying to find it. I mean, like ever since. And now I'm kind of like thinking it's kind of like this band I'm listening to now is automatically in the '80s, and potentially that was my question in my mind: is it one of the bands that's not like on that cassette? X-Men too, but it's like Lanny Griffith, the track master, always saying "axe me" and "make me," and it's automatically like Vanessa Williams, saving the best for last. It's almost like the Z71, of like Shirley Silverado, the Z71 thing about even alphanumerics of like 213 in Galveston County. Ultimately, even including like Ellington Air Force Base being alphanumerics of like 108 or operator or Chevrolet. But anyway, in the area code of like Los Angeles. But anyway, I was thinking about that because they're saying that also the bloodline and my blood vessels have been really been starting to stand. I mean, considerable amount happened while I was going through the Stargate program, and realized because of the intensity that even before and during and after that, certain issues about world news being on, um, talking about like an odorless gas, and you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't see it. And I was at a location, and they were talking about all that information. Yet Robert E. Rubin was like on television. I mean, so much, and I was thinking quite a bit about him following with like Wall Street Journal. In any case, so like I realized that like I was on the toilet, and I don't even know how I got on the floor. I'm waking up like I'm not sure if it's like maybe somewhere in between like a minute to a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. I didn't even know how I got on the floor. But I was on the toilet. I mean, there was like not even a hint or a clue, not even a warning, and those fumes came through. I couldn't smell it, taste it, see it, or anything. And they were talking about that on the news, world news. Yet Robert E. Rubin was just like, I mean, about something about, the book Secrets of the Temple, how the Federal Reserve runs the country, and the U.S. dollar being, United States Secretary of Treasury. In any case, so like all that information was like going on. But I was thinking about, 1972, and I'm thinking it was 72, and COVID ID 19, the alphanumeric is 72, the characterization of money. And I think that Marmalade Sky that Elton John sang about was like 1972. Um, and like I fell asleep on around maybe 4 or 5 p.m., thinking that when I woke up it was around maybe 7 or 8, that only a couple of hours had passed by, when in fact, I mean, like a day and a half had passed by. It was actually Sunday. And I was like, kind of like just waking up and seeing that sky is orange. I mean, I could see it like through the window, I mean, immediately. And I'm like looking like, what's going on for real? And it's kind of like almost like I was actually thinking that. I mean, it was like a universal issue, like planets. God, I mean, it's not like Mars, like planet, like coming over to visit or whatever. Um, Not funny. I mean, it was like, I mean, that huge and covered the whole entire sky. I mean, one and only time in my entire lifetime, but it seemed to be something about that weekend. And I'm wondering if that was like something about the pituitary gland. I see women quite a bit about models involving like the shoulder. suggesting something about that. Yet at the same time, I'm seeing like a lot of women that's kind of like became noticeable about them like raising their arm up like the armpit. It's now like the bloodline, something about the pituitary gland and how it affects guys' growth, where it matters in relation, and maybe not even realizing something about that actually happening. And it seemed to be possibly, that one weekend. I mean, I'm just now realizing it may have been, exactly that weekend, and not even having that connectivity, but realizing going through a circuit that being aerated in gas, um, and that happening. I mean, without a doubt, the intensity, knowing that it happened, and not knowing it, and still knowing that not knowing was like it's still happening anyway. Um, I mean, like a year, not hardly able to account for it. It was like, an extremely intense issue that seemed to be now the Vantage Love 30 about, what seemed to be only because of like television and entertainment being involved of a Stargate program. I mean, I'm assuming that there would be possibly no idea of like potentially being able to remember. I mean, like you probably heard it before, out of sight, out of mind. But something like that, taking place of a Stargate program, I was kind of like thinking about that because um, it seemed that one Marmalade sky seemed to be. I mean, was that something about affecting my bloodline? And similarly, the issue of like circulation. And I'm wondering, if that's like a bloodline directly, going straight to the pituitary gland in the brain that affects the hormones and growth and considerable amount about, relation where it matters in relation. And I'm kind of like thinking about that. I mean, I'd mentioned several times, I like you trying to control my erection. And, I'm just now thinking about it because Brian Adams, okay, is wearing those lenses. And luckily, I was thinking about all this information that's, going on ever since I've been on YouTube. And automatically, the availability had become the economics factor based on, knowing more than likely that I was going to be like on SSI, supplemental security income, and what that means economically or what availability means geographically had become even the coupon that, I'm talking about like on YouTube of laser corrective eye surgery. And one particular thing it seemed to be, as a child, that Chicken Little thing about the sky is falling is now just like the author principles of digital audio of William Pullman, or the idea of like identical perfection with green eyes in the wheelbarrow of Austin Powers movie being the Pullman. Like a hole in my ceiling, and the pole like knocking the sheetrock on my floor. I'm thinking really kind of like, well, that's not funny, but at the same time, considering what's the idea, still not cool in my mind, but I'm hearing a song of Sammy Hagar returning home in the American Express Bluebird prepaid card, having the color code of the green and blue, the color of the sea, seem to be this coupon like right here I'm looking at. Um, me actually referring to her as her, like a pronoun. In my mind, she's like really staying like really silent. Um, I'm not going to sit here and like, just say what I think about, that, but it seemed to be my perception really beyond my, not that I anticipated really anything about it other than like the automatic, wow, look who's in the mailbox. And really, for real. So like, ultimately, that Austin Powers movie, the green and blue, like the coupon that I'm looking at with laser eyes, uh, laser eye corrective eye surgery with the blue eyes. Yet Austin Powers movie with the green eyes, and it seemed to be the same similarities in color of the two wings on the American Express Bluebird card with the green and blue wing, yet the midnight blue, and it seemed to be the Trump and Vladimir thing, both being Vladimir and like Trump in 88, and it's almost like Theodore Franklin Roosevelt in the New Deal Act in 6 presidential terms in office. He had a Six Flags baptism. Seemingly, the thing with the Mormon Church being the American thing about the Mormon Church in Utah and make America great again. It's almost like Utah being 50. June, the month I was baptized in, and Vanessa Williams saying that sometimes it snows in the month of June. I mean, all this stuff that is like really taking place, and the connectivity. It's like almost like beyond like not funny, yeah. So like in any case, so like I was kind of like thinking about that because I was taking that location, and if my memory serves me correctly, Vanessa Williams was there for a little while, a brief while. Kind of like really hard to remember, but it's that location. Um, and Moby used to be like one of the disc jockeys at KLOL 101, then moved to 97 Rock, and it seemed to be the thing about that, um, about the iRock Chevrolet uh, iRock G28 and 97 Rock seemed to be the thing about them. Anyway, like I'm already getting to the point that I need to take a break. It's already like 11:30, but I just want to include that, and I'm actually not going completely concentrated direction like I wanted to. I might do it again, but I don't know if it'll be tonight. It's already getting late. But like it seemed that the idea of maybe the thought of like a pagan idolatry. Um, I mean, it's beyond like not cool. Thinking that possibly that one weekend of 1972, I'm almost for certain it's bound to be 1972 of that Marmalade Sky, and Elton John sang that song "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds" has only got to like a design of the lead singer of Triumph with the spandex pants of like a spiral diamond design, yet like a pair of swim trunks that I had gotten. He had the long legs spandex, but I didn't even know like he had those. I hadn't even seen that video, but I think I had, and but what I was getting was like short swim trunks, but it's like the same design that seemed to be in the infomercial of Trump saying "Make America Great Again," and the Hill HX50 helicopter being the red, white, and blue. Yet at Great Britain, red, white, and blue, same colors as the United States USA flag. Yet Ulysses S. Grant on the 50 and Utah and that one particular thing about Vanessa Williams and a song "Saving the Best for Last." Sometimes it snows in the month of June. It really has a significance that seemed to involve phlebotomy, the red and white blood cell, and something about how it all happened with the connectivity. Um, and it's like like once again, like a poster on my wall, contemplation. Um, Once again, real quick before I go ahead, and I'm already getting to where I need to take a break for real. Plus, it seemed to be something about the air quality is kind of making my voice kind of like crack up and break up a little bit, yeah. But anyway, so yeah, so it seemed to be all that connectivity to Jehovah's Witnesses saying that they wouldn't accept a blood transfusion in the event of an emergency, but plasma. It's like the white blood cell, but it seemed to be the thing about amyloidosis. It's normally exposure that causes the bone marrow um, to cause the immunoglobulin to react and produce an overabundant amount of white blood cells. Normally, that's exposure during chemotherapy and oncology. And it's a reaction of the body trying to defend itself and just based on the treatment itself being exposed to, the idea of combating, cancer to slow it, if not stop it, um, or go into remission, whatever the case may be. Um, the exposures really causes the amyloidosis um, that causes the immunoglobulin to do that. But the thing about here's the thing is that the similarities of pronunciation and like performance monitoring having a hub rerouting internally, switching and routing to get from point A to B its fastest way in a hub and hardware switches and routes. But in software, it's called a node. And what's going through it is going to be going through it. It's not going to be switched and routed to dissipate traffic. And depending on how much is going through it at the time, sometime it identified in that performance monitoring as a hotspot. And that's what a node. It has an IP address the same as a hub of switching and routing, and it identifies information with like IP addresses. Uh, Both have those, and goes through and identifies IP addresses. But one does one as one way in hardware, and the other's like almost like anatomy. The way it reacts as the immune system. And amyloidosis would be, the similarity of what seemed to be, involving the Safari browser. It's like it's identified as a browser, but it's like it blocks functionality. It's like restriction in circulation. What would be maybe considered functionality of like circuits, and it blocks it. It fills up internal storage in every possible way, and normal functionality gets so intense that it slows down that it like virtually stops. I mean, it's like an anatomy experience and exposure. Um, I mean, it shuts the functionality of the body completely down. Moving, even to get comfortable in bed, becomes almost beyond even able to pick up the phone to call 911 to get to the hospital. But I mean, even getting up or getting comfortable in bed, I mean, almost is like potentially a massive heart attack and a heart backfiring and like exploding. I mean, it's that serious about how restricted the circulation and blood flow becomes, like completely like not happening at all. And a combine of other stuff going on. Um, I mean, amyloidosis producing that much of white blood cells in the bloodstream causes a real serious, not funny, idea of what exposure obviously is meant. Um, but anyway, it's like but that's the way that Safari browser, it starts off as like a browser, but it almost like gains access, um, and interrupts, and it's almost like it becomes over the operating system, and I mean completely shuts it down. Getting it out is like almost not even worth messing with, and just like getting like another phone. And that's something about, in my mind, it seemed to be including something about like the portable connectivity program, um, that seemed to be presented when it really started like beginning. It's almost like the misappropriation allocation of Mississippi is like the Quaker, the K in Quaker, and the T in Quaker, and the KT and the Alacata about a Quaker and a Quater. But it seemed to be a misappropriation allocation. Likewise, in addition, once again, like to allocate and occasion, it become an ocean, yet allocate, it becoming Al Qaeda. Um, all that information is kind of like it's kind of like reference in one way. It's like an acronym with an option, with that one word, allocation. But anyway, yeah, it's already going on like God, close to 55 minutes, and I'm kind of like going, different directions. I was really wanting to stay focused on the Elton John thing about the Marmalade Sky, but it seemed to be something that had taken place that really I didn't. Maybe it really was maybe the year for something that had taken place that I'm seeing now. My blood vessels are standing on my arm. Maybe it's Istanbul as a drummer. Me normally choosing the Geneva, Switzerland, like Zildjian, a custom symbol, and experiencing something that seemed to be like what is now the pasty color sound 900, and what's going to be my symbols with my prohibition VSX in a Strata Blue. All my cymbals, virtually all of them, which you see me on my channel at Wade ASV Pretty PRDDY, is with a Provision VSX in a Strata Red. With virtually all of them are like Zilton A Custom, and I have a couple of like Zilton A Custom effects that's got the machine like slotted, um, openings. It's like probably the best sounding crash cymbal I've had. I think that they have the best sound. Uh, the EFX, the Zilton A Custom EFX, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I gotta take a break because I need to get some water real quick. But yeah, I want to include that anyway. So there it is. Okay.